they gotta get the stench off of Snyder and what Snyder did. And I mean, you can love him or you can hate his films, but the idea is that there's a negative perception right now with Snyder's universe, and so they have to completely bleach that off of their film history with the DCEU, and then you know reboot everything after that. So it's like and yeah, Superman is heavily tied to Snyder. That's all Snyder, and
It was kind of buried in the middle of a story. Then it didn't take off like the other one did recently, but in a report that was talking about how the Flash movie has been pushed back to 2021, it was mentioned that also it does look like they have no plans for Superman or Batman anytime soon at Warner Brothers for any standalone films or to include them in other pictures. And also, essentially, that they're looking to move on from Henry Cavill as the character of Superman. I just thought now, well, one, do you have any thoughts about that at all? I mean, Warner Brothers sort of how they fumble this thing along, and then now it seems like they've confirmed it in secrecy. But then also the idea that they would move on from Henry Cavill.
I mean, I'm not surprised by it. It just kind of seems more like every single time you hear something about this, it just seems like the more inevitability that was going to come from what they were doing. I mean, Batman, I understand just because Ben Affleck is such a roller coaster right now of, is he good? Is he not good? What are they going to do with that? So like, I get that side of it. I feel like Henry Cavill is more a victim of Snyder and what happened with Warner Brothers and Snyder, and the fact that, that is such just a sour taste in their mouth. They just kind of want to put their head in the sand and wait until he moves along so that they can kind of pick up where that was left off. It just kind of seems like that's for Batman and for Superman. It just seems more like, yeah, they just kind of want to wait until people kind of forget that Snyder kickstarted this DC cinematic universe, and then just, once that's all said and done, just kind of move forward with some new characters and that. Probably just, wait until the Flash thing hits, and then just kind of use the paradox to hit the reset button in case Shazam and Aquaman do sell well or are successful. Maybe they'll retool it, or if these all just become a disaster, then just hit the reset button entirely.
So you figure that if Aquaman, I mean, maybe it's not a stinker, but if Aquaman bombs, you can look at it and say this is a pretty bad bomb, all things considered, right? And then Shazam, it just doesn't do great, gangbusters, right? Then you figure that's it, full stop. They'll reboot everything.
Probably. I mean, right now, the way it is, I mean, they don't have to be that successful, but they have to do at least, I'd probably say, Guardians of the Galaxy success, where it's like, yeah, they're financially successful, but more or less, like, people love Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it's probably in the new generation of Marvel films the most beloved of the franchises. Just because of how fun and when how cute they were. Ant-Man was Ant-Man, so that was probably like, I mean, that was probably like the Thor. It's just like it's there. Didn't necessarily probably deserve a series, but they got one anyways. And then Black Panther's kind of on a different tier than all of them. So yeah, I would probably say for DC to have these films be successful and consider it a success, they'd probably have to do Guardians of the Galaxy numbers to be able to kind of, and then also get the
but more importantly, you're saying like the
hype.
Yeah, well, not just the hype, but the extended world, or the world that Aquaman exists in, like Mira and Black Manta and all. They have to get on the level of the Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of fan favoritism, that the kids have to go chasing down all the merchandise from Atlantis the same way they chase down the merchandise for the Nova Corps and all the Guardian stuff.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's how I would feel about it. Just because it's like, if these films don't do that, if they get, I'd probably say probably Batman versus Superman level of just kind of bitterness and nobody liking it, then yeah, they probably have to just reboot the whole thing.
Well, I mean, the thing that again, what worries me is if they're going to try to limp this thing along and then somehow reset it in some kind of a flashpoint or some kind of a multiverse story, right? What bothers me is that it worries me, I should say, is that yeah, Superman was he was the catalyst for this whole universe, right? The idea that the metahuman theory and everything that was brought out in Batman versus Superman, right? They talk about that in Lex Luthor's laboratory, and of course the idea of the Kryptonian ship coming down and all this kind of thing. It was he was the huge catalyst that kicked off everything. In the Suicide Squad movie, Amanda Waller says the world changed when he flew across the sky and it changed when he didn't anymore, right? Now I understand that they would probably try, like you said, get away from those films, but that's a huge thing that you can't necessarily just get away with it. You can't. I don't see how this works. It doesn't work at all, to me at least. I don't see how it works if you just say, okay, Birds of Prey takes place, right? And then here's the Supergirl story, right? And there's no references back to... It's just Superman's cousin, for goodness sakes, right? And it's that whole thing... well, I know the original 80s film, right? They said that... Members, what is it? Is it Hart Bachner, right? And he's like, I recognize that costume, right? Like even something like that, talked about that, and there's talk about, the big guy himself, and there's a poster of Chris Reeve. Now, of course, I don't think they'll have to steal those exact moments. They're probably not going to steal much from the '84 Supergirl film, but again, to acknowledge that, to just ignore that, I don't see how they could do it without acknowledging that and then making a reference to all that kind of stuff, because Superman, again, was the spark that lit the fuse and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's what worries me again, is that once again, if they're talking about, well, we want to put the character on ice for a little bit so we can try to figure it out the right way. What bothers me is that, well, by doing that, you're undercutting the character again. This seems to be the problem they always walk into in the comic books and the movies, and then kind of wonder, like, why is it so hard to figure out Superman and all this kind of stuff, right? Mostly because they get people who are not huge fans of the source material and they try their own ideas and that falls flat, and then people just blame the characters. Well, he's too hard to work on. But it's that same trap again. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I feel like just more in general, what happened, what kind of evolved from this was, like I said, I think right now DC, Warner Brothers in general, I feel like is just kind of taking the step back of everything just because of what happened, and like I said, with the fallout with Snyder and stuff, because Snyder built that persona for the characters, and with a cinematic universe, you have this perception of right now Superman is the guy who snapped Zod's neck. Superman is the guy that let thousands of people die in a battle, and the guy that can't carry a franchise by himself because of what happened with those films. And Batman, more or less, like I said, the issue with Batman is more just the Ben Affleck situation. So kind of just comes down to what can they do? Do they just reboot the character? Do they just do they cast a new person but say it's Cavill's universe, or do they start something different? Do they pull him from a different universe like the CW franchise does with their characters? Like, I feel like that's where the issue kind of just, how are they going to be able to address this? And instead of, well, let's come up with a solution now, I feel like they're more or less just, hey, let's just run these other properties and see what sticks to it. And then, when we got a team, a director or a writer or somebody that says, yeah, I have an idea of what I want to do with Superman. Okay, well, you know what? Hey, this the people with Shazam, right? Let's say that they
knock it out of the park.
They knock it out of the park, and they're like, hey, you know what? We want to tackle Superman. Okay, well, what idea do you have? Let's work with that, right? Or they brought on James Gunn to do the Suicide Squad. If he says, you know what, man, I really love to take on the Justice League. I know what I can do with these characters, Superman, Batman, everybody. okay, let's hand the keys over to James Gunn and let's let him run our franchise, right? Or, if they finally say it, Miller, let's George Miller, please, like what, like come on with Superman, right? But they don't know what is their best option right now. So instead of solving it, let's just do what the easiest thing is to do: put our heads in the sand and wait.
That's what you're saying. That's why, like, that story came out. It was a mess. Nobody seemed to have any of the answers ready to go, or didn't want to say what the real answers were. And then this story comes up again about Flash, but then winds up with this thing kind of buried in the middle of it. That's why you're saying it's all over the place. That you think that Warner Brothers, whether they understand it or not, they've accepted that, what, this whole, or whether they blame Snyder or they take the blame, they've accepted this idea that, okay, look, Superman got completely fumbled here, and so it's such a mess that we're caught in between because we built the universe around Superman, and now we might want to pull the trigger and just do a full reboot, but we're stuck in how the timeline went here. So we have we have Aquaman getting ready. It was made, it's done, now it's ready to be released, and then Wonder Woman's on her way. So we just got to let it fly. And now if they completely collapse, then we'll full on reboot. But we're kind of caught in between right now. So let's let those play out, see if they do well. We'll keep moving forward with Birds of Prey, and then if we have to reboot, we'll just say, surprise, Wonder Woman exists in her own, universe type of thing, right? And she's where it all started. And then Birds of Prey takes place, so this is the girl power universe. We're starting off with them, and then we'll get to the reboot Superman, and then work our way back. Like, that will only happen after they see the lay of the land, because they're stuck in between because of how bad that the whole Superman thing got fumbled. That's kind of how you think things are playing out.
Right. I mean, kind of, and ironically too, it's kind of correlating to the DC, to the CW universe, but something that was talked about is that people love what they're doing with the Superman on the CW universe, and so now there's rumors coming about that they're considering giving him his own series. They're considering giving him his own TV show.
Right.
And so, the idea is that, right, that started with Supergirl. Superman was there, but it started with Supergirl. And then they used Supergirl to introduce Superman, and now, hey, fans like that Superman, so, okay, let's...
Well, it really started with Arrow, because...
Right.
That's why, yeah, you're right. 80% chance this Superman's going to get his own show. It'll be since Lois and Clark and George Reeves, right?
Yeah.
Or unless you want to count Superboy. But because they did Arrow, and then crossover event, and introduced the Flash, and then a major crossover event, and then the Supergirl got her own show, and they crossed over, and what is that? What is it? Is it Legion of? Is it the Legion of
Superheroes?
Yeah, they have, and is that a show, or is that
they
it's
do
a show.
A
couple episodes? Yeah, so they have, and then now here's another major crossover, and they've already shown the Tyler Hoechlin Superman. He's got the black suit and all this kind of stuff. Spoilers. So there's another crossover, Elseworlds Tale, and so they're going to spin it. So you're kind of thinking that not only do they have a formula that seems to be working, but that was your point, to do it piecemeal. So that's why you think they're essentially adopting that in the movies now. Like you said, Aquaman, it is said that no other characters appear. So they could always just ignore the previous universe, say something happened, explain it later, right? But they could say, hey, Aquaman's story took place. Then Wonder Woman 84 and her original film sort of took place. And then now, hey, like you said, it's popular now. And now all of a sudden a character spins out of Aquaman and winds up in Suicide Squad 2 or something. And all right, you kind of think that's the formula they're taking here.
Well, yeah, and I think, like I said, it just kind of comes to, they gotta get the stench off of Snyder and what Snyder did. I mean, you can love him or you can hate his films, but the idea is that there's a negative perception right now with Snyder's universe, and so they have to completely bleach that off of their film history with the DCEU, and then, reboot everything after that. So it's like, and yeah, Superman is heavily tied to Snyder. That's all Snyder, and with the character, with Henry Cavill, unfortunately, you're gonna have to get yourself to, you're gonna have to put, move away from him in order to kind of just get the audience to accept what's coming down in the future. So, and then on top of it, like I said, what are you going to do now that Snyder's gone? Now that, all of the people that worked with the Superman franchise is gone, what do you do with the character? Who wants to take that character now, So I feel like I said, it from a logical side, it makes sense. It sucks. It sucks to see the character have to go through this in Hollywood and everything. But
it's something else to be a Superman fan. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, trying to be optimistic and trying to say, okay, yeah, they just don't care about the character and they're just trying to kill the character. Looking at it from a actual logical standpoint, it's like, yeah, no, it kind of makes sense that,
Well, you're the glimmer of hope that you're trying to go for, right? The little ray of sunshine that you're trying to hold out hope for. It's not, like you said, it's not that they're trying to kill or disrespect and throw all kinds of shade at Superman, but you mean, yes, not Superman the character, though. I mean, yes, as in Zack Snyder, the Superman we started all this with, no matter who's to blame, it all got fumbled, and so we have to, sort of like the Star Wars thing, right? We have to kill the past and move on here, right? So we have to kill that Superman. That's what you're kind of saying. That's what you're hoping, or
right? Because I mean, look at it like this: when Marvel started off, Marvel was part of Paramount when it started off their cinematic universe,
right,
and they started off with Iron Man. They had some pretty bad films that come out after that with The Incredible Hulk and Captain America. Those were very bad films. They didn't do well. They didn't sell well. They kind of just were, there and done with, right? But Iron Man, and then Iron Man 2 was kind of a mixed mash of good and yeah. So when Disney took over, though, the main thing is they still had the first Iron Man film to build on. They still had the character Robert Downey Jr. to work with, right? So when they could launch it from that point, from the Avengers from the Avengers film, you still had that, and then you can work around everything else. You can retool the rest of the franchise like they did with Captain America, and retool like they did with Thor, and with everything else after that.
But you don't have that with Superman because, like you said,
it's so tied to Snyder.
You go back to that. It's not just tied to Snyder, but you go back to that. Just what took place in the film, right? I mean, of course, yes, we know Snyder, but like you said, snapping Zod's neck and ruthlessly, and sonic boom, crack, and then the destruction. You go back to that's what you're going back to. Whereas with Iron Man, both of us are really like what they did with that film, a lot. And so, like you said, it's. There's not a ton of flaws with that first film for Iron Man, right? There's no glaring flaws that hurt the character going forward. Any mistakes were made in a handful of the sequels, and like you said, you can always reset back to the beginning fairly easily, right? Because I'm not the biggest fan of Civil War, but I got a chill, and I sort of had the fandom shakes, right? In my hands, right? Because that moment when he takes off with the shield and he's just like that. Give me back that shield. That shield doesn't belong to you. My father made that shield, right? And he drops it. Like, I thought that was probably one of the best and most excellent small little moments. That's a big moment because it reverberates, no pun intended, with the shield, but it reverberates back through the franchise and what they did with, like you said, not the best Captain America movie in the world, that first one. I'm not a fan of that one really much at all, but the fact that his father was there and we saw that, and all, you can go back to those things, but what you're saying is, you don't have that with DC because you have to go back to either Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman, and that's complicated, at best and troublesome at worst, right?
Yeah, and so, it's like, how do you retool the character? And then, like I said, right now you have teams that are interested in doing other projects and everything, and so it's like, like nobody is standing up saying, hey, I got a writer, I got a crew, let's go crush Superman out right now. Like, I can do that. I can knock Superman out of the park with this. So, it's like, if nobody's stepping up, nobody's standing up to say, hey, this is how I would redo Superman, you're why hire somebody, why necessarily force, again, like, why force James Wan to direct Superman film if he doesn't want to do it, right? It's like you have to get people who would want to take on that kind of franchise, and especially the way it is right now, you would have to want somebody that'd be willing to kind of be able to really reset that slate instead of just forcing it down somebody's throat. So it's like, yeah, I get it. Why not just hold off? Why not just, hey, we'll put our hands up. We'll say, yeah, the character's kind of just, it's gotten out of control. We're just gonna let it go, and then once we get enough momentum with these other films, if somebody steps up and says, yeah, I want to take that on, then we'll put the character back on the map.
Right.
But until then, why force it? Why do another Man of Steel again? Or
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, or or do a Superman Returns, or it's like, yeah, but those.
Well, I was just about to say too, because what's interesting about that was to say Superman Returns, because he was away for a long time and there was a big mess, and then Bryan Singer came on board and they did Superman Returns. And I was just thinking to myself, is like, yeah, it's a smaller mess. It didn't take 20 years this time, but Jesus, the 20-year mess before, I think the mess they have now is even worse. But yeah, you're going to bring Bryan Singer back to do Superman Returns again? Like, literally, that's the title, right? Superman Returns again. Rather than do all that, like you said, they really just need to get the foundation set and figure out what they're going to do. But I would understand that, with excuse me. Oh, sorry. With Aquaman, I think Aquaman's the one that really caught him in between everything, and so they have to kind of let that one finish, and all the rumors that there was a bit of an argument with the studio and the director and all that kind of stuff. But it's sort of interesting that we were talking about directors again, and then I just brought up Singer, and you brought up Snyder a lot. You give it any more thought to your ideas? I mean, have you thought more about, do you have a director that you would pick, or say like a handful of directors, you'd say, I give these guys a shot to see what they can say? Or have you given any more thought to, what do you think are your little bulletin points that you have to do with the next Superman film?
Not in particular.
Well, because I thought about what you said last time, and why I asked that, because it came across, I was thinking about Watchmen, and we're talking about Zack Snyder, and I had it in my mind that sequence with the older Night Owl from Watchmen, right? Spoilers here, but yeah, he gets killed late into the film, right? And I remember seeing it for the first time, and I was sort of stunned at the filmmaking nature of it. It was this horrific happenings on screen, but it was done beautifully by Snyder, I thought. And I remembered this dramatic music and the flashbacks, and man, it's just, there was a poetry to it. I wanted to bring a tear to your eye, right? And I remembered it that way. And then I went back and I looked up the scene. I finally found it, looked it up again, and it's still there, but I thought about what you said in your first review for Batman vs. Superman, that you wanted Snyder, like, hold that moment longer, like the moment when you see Superman, beside himself and saddened and even brought to tears amidst fire and flames and this explosion that is taking place, and he knows that he has failed and this thing went down, the wrong way and all. And you talked about, hold that moment longer, let us really absorb it. And even at one point we were arguing in the car about it some months later, and you were talking about, F it, let him turn around and walk out of the room, because he can do it, he's Superman. But anything to hold that moment longer, to hold Superman's sadness and emotion in that moment, allow you to really absorb it and feel it, right? And when I looked up the Watchmen scene, I had remembered it that way. But yeah, it takes place, and I'm very cautious with criticizing filmmakers. I don't run to try to criticize them as fast as a lot of other people out there, because I've got a lot of friends that work on different projects and all this kind of stuff, that given me a great respect for the industry and gives me respect for people that work on these projects, and I know how fast they can go bad. So I don't try to hold myself back from really criticizing artists and directors and filmmakers. But yeah, that sequence I would have to criticize, because man, if I felt the same way, if he had really hung that sequence longer, if he had really let the Hollis Mason, I think it's Stephen McHattie, as the Hollis Mason characters. It's a tremendous job playing it, and it has everything that you need. But he just could have held a few of the shots longer. Could have held the music track longer. It's a beautiful piece of music, a classical piece of music, and it just again. So I thought about what you said about Snyder, and yeah, I feel that way about other elements. Man of Steel, I really felt that way. Should have hung longer on the heroic moments of Superman. So that would be my thing. I've given out my list of directors before. I thought Colin Trevorrow or the gentleman who directed the what is it, the Kingsman films, right? I throw those guys out there, but ultimately that's what it comes down to for me is like you got to have the wonder and the awe of Superman, but you also have to be able to hold the camera and hold the emotion of those heroic moments and the big emotional moments. So that would be the only thing that I've thought about since last time. I mean, I don't know if you disagree with any of that, or if you have, again, if that's kind of what I was getting at with that question.
No, no, I don't have anything else I would add to that. I think, yeah, I think that's a lot of the same points that I would make.
All right. Well, we're on the same page, but unfortunately, seems like the people that sit high up on the mountain in charge of everything are not even in the same book.